Jacinta Carroll is a senior analyst and director of counter-terrorism at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and she joins us now from Canberra. Good morning, Jacinta.
Good morning.
As we just heard from Jessie Dorset reporting from the suspect's house, neighbours were very shocked there. Does the profile of the suspect arrested surprise you, given that he's a man in his 40s, an electrician, an Australian born in a rural town?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We've been doing a lot of research into the area, both in Australia and some joint work with some colleagues in the US. And what we're finding is that there isn't a neat profile. There are people who've been convicted of terrorism offences in Australia who range from mid-teens through to 50s. So there's not a clear profile of this, other than that the majority are male, definitely. And we've also seen that whether it's Islamist terrorism, as this case is, involving Zahab, or it's far-right extremism, there's also often a link into rural communities. So also there isn't a profile of particular suburbs and areas.
Given that profiling is integral to investigations, is there any way that authorities investigating could change their practices in order to hone in more specifically on profiling?
Well, I think it's important to note that profiling isn't the starting point of any investigation. It's indicators of travel and background and so on, as we know, are part of picking up some indicators that might be subject to later investigation in areas like border security. But in terms of counter-terrorism investigations in Australia, there are a variety of sources of information to draw upon. We've heard from AFP Commissioner Andrew Colvin yesterday that metadata, for example, was one of the things that was likely used in this investigation. So that means that some of the engagement in emails and so on that Zahab was involved in, perhaps some of the searches he was doing on the internet, and we'll find out more about that in the court case, were things that had been picked up by investigators. It's also likely that there have been issues of concern that have been raised by people in the community, and these, of course, are anonymously referred to authorities to assist with their investigations. So there'd be a variety of leads, if you like, that cause the investigators to proceed through what has been an 18-month investigation under Operation Marksburg.
How important is the arrest and ensuing charges of this man for sending out a message to others in our community who might be engaged in such alleged illegal activity?
Yeah, very interesting question, because of course the popular image of someone who's an Islamic State supporter, and indeed someone who is charged with foreign incursions, which is the charge involved here, is someone who has travelled to the Middle East to engage in the conflict there for Islamic State. But of course there are a variety of ways under law in which you can be subject to criminal action for supporting a terrorist group. And that can be, as we've heard in this case, the allegations are seeking to provide technical support, even based in Australia, even based in a house in rural New South Wales. You can be directly supporting Islamic State, and that, of course, is a crime.
ASIO officials say the number of Australians being investigated for links to ISIL or terror groups has decreased. What do you put this down to? Is it that they're more on top of it now, or is ISIL's power being diluted?
Well, it's actually both of those things, and probably some other pieces as well. But of course, Australia, along with many countries in the world, large coalitions have been involved in fighting Islamic State in the Middle East and, of course, in North Africa, to ensure that they don't provide that safe haven, and also, as we had seen but no longer really see, the idea that there was a so-called state for people to migrate to and become part of. So as they've been defeated on the battlefield and Islamic State is just becoming yet another guerrilla warfare terrorist group, as it was originally as part of Al-Qaeda, then of course the attraction is lost. So that's part of it. They are being defeated internationally. Also, there's been a lot of action in Australia to cancel passports. We've seen one citizenship cancellation so far, and a variety of other things. And that really ensures that these terrorist groups lose their appeal. And of course, their appeal and propaganda and the idea of some great cause appears to be the thing that has resonated in Australia. It doesn't resonate with locals, with Muslims, Christians and others in the Middle East and North Africa who are living through this. But the propaganda appears to have been a significant part in middle-class first world countries to attract people to support groups like Islamic State.
So do you think the appeal will remain for ISIL in a year's time?
Well, a big part of Islamic State's initial appeal, of course, was al-Baghdadi declaring in mid-2014 from the pulpit of the Grand Mosque in Mosul that he had declared a so-called caliphate and a state and issued directives that people should be migrating to this so-called state. So, of course, that's gone. So a big part of the attraction has gone. But, of course, terrorist groups aren't required to peddle the truth or to provide facts. They're not based in the rule of law and they can say whatever they like. So we are seeing that Islamic State has been changing its propaganda to say, oh, look, maybe the caliphate isn't quite now, there might be another battle coming and so on. So they will morph their message to try to attract and retain supporters. And others such as Al-Qaeda, of course, which continues to be very active in the Middle East in particular, in Yemen, and also the Taliban, which has had a resurgence in Afghanistan, are looking to the impact of this type of propaganda to figure out how they can get more supporters and, of course, more money.
OK, Jacinta Carroll, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time today.